morning, welcome. On behalf of SWAP, I welcome you. My name is Mzobe, a senior researcher at Society Work and Development Institute, SWAP. Welcome to our second breakfast seminar this semester. We are still under the broader theme of the new student movement and decolonization. Today we interrogate the link or the working together or the alliance between the workers and the students. We have two worker leaders today who will be speaking for us. One of the speakers is still on the way. But I'll just introduce the one who is here. But before I do so, I've got a few apologies to make. One, of course, we apologize that the speaker is still on the way, but she'll be in at any moment now. And secondly, I think some of us were here last time. You might know that there was a suggestion from the audience that we donate the food to the Vets Food Bank for our breakfast. And we found that a very good suggestion, and we've taken that. So if like me, you didn't have your breakfast today, like I always do when you come to these seminars, well, we apologize, but it's for a good cause. But do not despair. There will be tea and coffee at the end of the session. I mean, coffee, and you may also find a biscuit or two as well. So at least there's something there. But yeah, I think we're doing it for a good cause, and we have taken that suggestion very seriously as well. So, our speaker today, who is next to me, is Mzobe N Munshi, who is a member of the Vets Workers Solidarity Committee. So we are waiting for Mr. Mzobe to join us. But Mzobe will take 15 minutes and Daniel will take 15 minutes. So Mzobe will start now, and Daniel should be joining us in a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. So, as one of you said, my name is Mzobe N Munshi. I introduced myself as a founding member of the Workers Solidarity Committee. And when I met with Mzobe, we discussed sort of the history, and that's what I'm going to focus on, sort of the history of the Workers Solidarity Committee, some of the campaigns we did, how we began to organize. And then when David Liebe comes in, she's going to talk a bit more about the experience of the workers, and a bit more about some of the current events on campus, and some of the current organizing.
So, Natalie, can I stop you, since she has just come just before you start, and introduce Daniel? Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sure, you are forgiven. Well, let me introduce Daniel briefly. She is an outsourced worker at Vets, and a worker leader and a member of the Workers Solidarity Committee, and also is a member of the October 6th movement. She also serves in the insourcing task team as a deputy chairperson. So that is Daniel Mzobe, who will speak after Mzobe. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mzobe.
So I'm going to start a bit with sort of the historical background towards outsourcing. Outsourcing began at Wits University in 2000, and it was done on the basis of a report by the University Management Associates, which is a consulting firm, and the university paid $4.5 million for this report to consider outsourcing. When the university decided to outsource, it meant that over 613 workers were retrenched from the university. About 250 workers were re-employed at the time. There were about 4 outsourcing companies that started at the university. And typically workers' wages dropped from about 2,227 Rand to approximately 1,200 Rand at the time. They also lost their ability to, for their children to study freely, as was the practice, and sort of, they also lost their pensions and medical benefits. So all of the kind of securities that come with permanent employment we lost to workers, in terms of real wages, I think currently they still earn less than that they would have earned if they were if they remained in-source. It was against this backdrop in 2000 that I think the campaign for outsourcing and against outsourcing really began. At that time, there were a number of protests. I think Comrade Woodward, Professor Woodward, and others were involved in that sort of initial round of protests. From 2000 to about 2010, organizing of outsourced workers was difficult to maintain, somewhat ad hoc. When I joined, it was mostly supercare workers who were doing the cleaning at that time, who were organized, and it was largely with the support of players like me and the sociology department, I think Janine and Kirby and others. It was more academic support, academic staff who were sort of supporting outsourced workers in their struggle against outsourcing and just in general worker struggles on campus. So in 2010, what happened was outsourcing at that time was run by the services department of the university. And there was a man in Armitage who was employed by the university who headed the services department. And workers had approached. The interesting thing about that time is workers not from Supergate who were generally somewhat organized, but workers who were plumbers, painters, and gardeners had approached the SRC for assistance, complaining against racism, and in particular against an outage, who referred to workers as baboons, and sorry for my language, but they were actually refused help at that time by the SRC, and a collective of, I think, activists, students and academics, then sort of got together and formed a campaign, and it was in September 2010. We issued memorandums to the university. At that stage, the Vice Chancellor was Loyiso Nompat, sorry, pronunciation. And I mean, in that stage, what really is important, and I think to just sort of see the trajectory of outsourced workers, is that workers at that stage sort of remained unheard by the university management. They were not considered members of its community. And Loyiso refused to meet with workers in capacity as official members, in his capacity as the Vice Chancellor of the university, but would only meet them in his personal capacity. And that was because his relationship with, or the university's relationship was directly with companies and not with the workers. And so the very fight from the beginning was around sort of the recognition of workers who work on the campus daily, who ensure that learning could take place at this university to just get accepted as members of its community. Before we could even fight the systemic issues of racism, etc. And so it was during this campaign against anti-Asian, against racism, which also important to sort of set the conversation and the language in how outsourcing and how the struggle for outsourcing is framed by what would become the Worker Solidarity Committee around Black bodies, exploitation, in particular against Black workers. About sometime, I think around May 2011, was when Ian Armitage finally had a disciplinary hearing, but he resigned on a Friday before the Monday of his hearing. It was still a victory because it meant that something was done, and that for the first time, sort of, there was a voice and a conversation on campus around the issue of outsourcing. I wanted to just show you a demonstration. These are sort of pictures of one of the demonstrations that took place at Senate House. It was against, it was at a time I think they were handing memorandum over to the
Can you see that, right?
So you can see that at that time, what had happened during the campaign was as it began to organize, supercare workers also joined. It was sort of the collective voice of workers who was sort of saying no to racism on campus. And I think what really proved to be effective in this campaign and following campaigns for the Worker Solidarity Committee was that we were quite effective at putting out posters on campus, abusing email lists and just sending out emails, our memorandums, our press statements, we had open letters. So, and then it was the issues of outsourced workers covered by Vizela. And all of this combined sort of meant that on campus we began to have conversation about outsourcing. And it began with a campaign against racism, and following soon after this, it was the 2011 cleaning sector strike that took place. And at that strike, at that strike, workers had almost not been on campus for about approximately 4 weeks. And the first week, people sort of noticed, and thereafter, business sort of continued as usual. And it was a very frustrating situation because we didn't know how to organize workers, and so we began what became known as a litter campaign. Because the companies had imposed scab labor, and our sort of argument was we can't really fight scab workers, but what we can do is ensure that campus remains dirty so that they're doing sort of additional work and not the normal work that outsourced workers do on campus to keep the university clean. So we began a sort of litter campaign, and that began with littering concourse, and as well as some buildings at West Campus. And the result was that we put up videos on YouTube and 3 students were suspended. And I think this campaign somewhat strengthened the Worker Solidarity Committee and strengthened sort of the alliance between workers and students. Because students were willing to get suspended, and I think at that moment there was sort of an appreciation and sort of acknowledgement of what this collective and organization of the Worker Solidarity Committee meant. And just to say, it was officially named Worker Solidarity Committee sometime between March and May of 2011, sorry. And I mean, following that, so following that campaign, I do want to say I think it's a large part of why the Worker Solidarity Committee succeeded is because I think workers have really taken ownership of the Worker Solidarity Committee, and through the sort of successful campaigns and that began to take place, it was very interesting that so initially we sort of like write emails, request meetings with the university management, and then almost a year later, delegations of workers and students would just go up to the Vice Chancellor's office and demand that we set a meeting and an appointment. And we'd be sending direct emails to him, and he'd be having conversations with workers through emails and in person. And sort of this moment symbolized sort of an acceptance that workers were now had to be, and was forcibly had to be recognized as members of the university community and had to be taken seriously. And one moment which really, really strengthened that was when we drafted this report, which was the draft report on the conditions of outsourced workers. And this report sort of detailed the history of outsourcing at campus, how it came about, but then began to document sort of the abuses that workers face at campus. So it started by outlining the issue of racism on campus, and then explained how difficult it was to organize because meetings were banned on campus, workers couldn't meet in collective spaces, workers had to use segregated entrances, and I think the entrance at that time was the one near Stark Park, which is exceptionally far from the main roads such as Empire and Lansmouth. There were segregated spaces, so workers couldn't use the dining rooms, the change rooms. The conditions of the change rooms were appallingly poor, and I'll show you pictures later. They couldn't use any bathrooms. They would sort of had to go back to their change rooms. So if you were working in, for example, Senate House on the 11th floor, and you were a cleaner, you had to work all the way down to the matrix, at the bottom of the matrix where the change rooms were, to A, eat, because that's the only place you were allowed to eat, B, use the bathrooms, and your change room was above the sewage system, and we ate, so sewage pipes. And then we also complained about the loss of educational facilities. So workers couldn't use computers, let alone their children not being allowed access to education on campus. Then the document also sort of outlined the treatment of intimidation, especially of worker leaders who were trying to organize. I spoke about that. And then we somewhat, at the end, we made a comparison with UCT, which that UCT had sort of a memorandum of understanding and outlined a sort of a code of conduct, and it was sort of, it said minimum standards which companies employed by the university had to comply with around wages and treatment of workers. So this was one example we provided as if while outsourcing continues, this is better practice. It's not best practice would be insourcing. But it was also an attempt to show the university that the structural conditions create apartheid-like conditions on campus, and this seriously needs to be addressed. Now, this report was submitted to Senate, and that meant that the conversation about outsourcing was now taken to the decision-making bodies of the university. The result was that they instituted an initial investigation, which is known as the Tukisa report, I have it somewhere. And that report sort of acknowledged and resulted in the university apologizing to workers, and the changing of the more superficial importance around dignity, but the more easier stuff to change was to give workers access to bathrooms, give workers, allow workers to just use and be on the university campus, so they didn't have their lunch and library doors. And importantly, what it also meant was that the change room of service workers was finally completed. Let's see some of the some of the conditions of the change rooms. Those are the sewage pipes, I think, at the bottom of the matrix. These are the showers. So service workers, or the gardeners at that stage, their change rooms was a shack located near Hoffman House. It was a shack. They had outside geyser, the windows were broken, and across Hoffman House was this building which is completely tiled and housed garbage bins. And it was just this bizarre situation. So following this report, at least their change rooms were finally completed after, I think, a year, it's not months. And they got, this is the gate that the contractors were only allowed to use. Yes, their change rooms were changed finally. But following the Tukisa report, where the university apologized to workers, they subsequently had another report, which is known as the Mzobe report. And that report looked into the issue. That report looked into the issues of outsourcing and insourcing and whether insourcing is feasible. But again, like the Tukisa report, was done by lawyers and was completely methodologically flawed. Now, this is an investigation instituted by the university, and they have SWOT, they have the economics department, they have all the resources at the university to conduct a proper investigation, and they do that. And despite the university admitting just before that Senate meeting to workers that the report was flawed, it was still adopted by Senate. One of the other strategies that I think is important, because it just shows the kind of campaigning that took place. When we submitted this report to Senate, and when the Senate was having these meetings, workers would line outside Senate room, and all the white male professors and academics who were, and particularly pointed out by Mel, who would go into the Senate meeting, sort of had to walk through this line of workers and sort of realize that the issue that they were talking about affect real people and affect lives. And I mean, I think that those sort of moments, the important moments in sort of confronting power and sort of just forcing the university to confront the issues of outsourced workers and sort of the reality that is happening. Now, the interesting thing about Gid is that when he came in and he started his, I guess, his vice chancellorship at the university, one of the major issues at that time was outsourcing, and he sort of had to confront it. I stand to be corrected, but I think it was around 2013 that Habib's term started. And at that time, contracting workers were coming to an end, and so there was a tender process. And it was quite sad, but we had to sort of force the university to ensure that when new companies took over super clean service or whatever, that all workers' jobs were maintained. And this is actually workers' rights and job security is protected under, I think, Section 197 of the LRA, Labor Relations Act. And that was another win for the university, because I think it was also sort of a morally incomprehensible situation where we had to force them to ensure that all workers' jobs were kept safe. But we did, and I think for that moment when workers then changed over to Queza, it was again one particularly important moment, but it also highlighted sort of the tensions, because what that meant was, although workers' jobs were protected, the company still found a way to get rid of some of the older workers. And sort of the abuse of, within outsourcing, I mean, we do have workers who are sort of permanently, I'm using the term, So I have permanent contracts with, for example, Peza, but then there's temporary workers, there's night shift workers, and they're far more vulnerable. Okay, I have 2 minutes. So, I mean, one of the important struggles and challenges that the World Solidarity Committee faced was sort of an attempt at delegitimizing it. I mean, this happened particularly with the bear. Sorry, I'm just going to put this off. It's distracting. And he refuses, even to today, to recognize the World Solidarity Committee on campus. He argues that we have to register as an organization on campus, but the point is there is no place for an organization which is a collective of workers, academics, and students. We can't run with SDNU, we're not an academic body, and we don't run with services, so where exactly do we register? But also, it's an important tool to ensure that when he has meetings, he's like, I only want to speak to workers. And it's an attempt to sort of break sort of the solidarity that existed. Just to talk quickly, when outsourcing started and how it lost half its members, most workers now belong to the South. And I think that both the delegitimization of the World Solidarity Committee and outsourcing in itself undermines organizing of workers. And so it's an important tool as well to ensure that workers remain sort of exploited. And part of not allowing workers to meet with campus is also ensuring that they couldn't organize and effectively fight for their rights. Okay, I'm going to just stop there. Except, can I make one last point? Sure. Sorry. So, just one last important campaign that to talk to the theme is about students and work solidarity. And I think that the 3 o'clock campaign, where 17 chefs were fired from Royal Nandi, was really because, again, it was sort of a company's underhanded tactics. At that moment, it was students, not workers, who led this campaign. And they went on a hunger strike, occupied Senate House. And I think for the Workers' Solidarity Committee, there was a moment in which sort of it sort of showed the cemented this alliance between students and workers. Because students really led this campaign and came out in full force of workers, for workers. And subsequently, I mean, I think that today the Workers' Solidarity Committee goes through phases of organizing. But last year, again, students occupied with MJL workers who lost their jobs because the company was liquidated through mismanagement, which the university was aware of. We occupied the university's vice chancellor's office. And again, I think these moments sort of strengthen the solidarity. And with academics, when academics went on strike, I can't remember the year, but workers came out to support them as well. And I think it was the first academic strike, or an important moment in the recent history of the university, where solidarity between academic students and workers will again sort of prove to be quite a force. Because when academics marched around campus, workers and students were there to join them. And this sort of, just shows that history and our solidarity that was both.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Nadira, for that very interesting historical narrative. I wish there was more time to unpack it a lot more. I think you may have summarized some of the things, but maybe they will surface during the discussion and the questions session. I will go over to Comrade straight away after that. Thanks.
Okay. Hello everyone. And sorry again, I was late. Sure, but Nadira, you said everything, okay, I'll just start off by saying it wasn't always like this for workers here at VETS, because before outsourcing, workers were actually employed by VETS. They were VETS staff, they had all the benefits, they had access to all the gates, they had access to the libraries, to the computers, they could apply for jobs, because some of the workers that are now VETS staff used to be cleaners. They started off as cleaners. All this segregation, apartheid laws, all this intimidation, all this exclusion of workers started in 2001. It was a very sad episode in the history of VETS where workers had to queue for their jobs after they've been retrenched from VETS. And when the outsourced companies came through, and the workers had to queue for their jobs in order to be rehired by the incoming companies, the outsourced companies. And that was a very sad moment because, as Nadira has said, they lost half of their salaries, even more than half of their salaries. That is when vets introduced this, they call it ex-vet allowance. If you were previously employed by vets, you then get this allowance of 200 rand on top of 1,000 rand that the workers had to earn. From earning 2,200, it was like more than half that they lost. And they also lost the benefits like medical aid, your decent pension fund, and all the other things that we counted, like the access. Now we couldn't use the computers, you can't apply anymore. And also, even if you were lucky, because some of the staff, they would be nice enough to apply for you on your behalf, but there was just something wrong with the system. You just couldn't even get an interview. We just kept on sending the CVs and emailing our applications through, but you don't even get called, you know, to an interview, let alone a response to say you couldn't be accepted to this. And there was just something else that was wrong in that system as well. And I think I lost the train now. Okay, that was on the benefits that we lost, and also our dependents. They could no longer attend events for free. And oh yeah, on the ex-vet allowance of 200 rand that the companies use today. Now that I'm still gonna get to it, you know, since winning the battle of insourcing, there is a trust team that has been established, and part of the work that the trust team has done is to introduce a top-up system. It was because the university acknowledges that outsourcing was an exploitative measure because it paid like peanuts, and it's one of the first things that we did as a task team is to top up the workers' wages. So the workers who are earning like below 4.5, because 4.5 is the minimum that we agreed on. The workers had actually put their demand of 6.5. The workers wanted the minimum wage. They wanted no worker who will be working at vets to be earning less than 6.5. And obviously in these things we negotiate with the management, and as the task team we agreed that 5,000 should be the minimum. But council came back and said they can only afford 4.5, and we agreed on 4.5. And the agreement was that the allowances that I was talking about shouldn't be affected. So it would be the workers' pay, then the top up to 4.5, then the allowances would come after. But now, recently, we're finding out that some of the workers, like the Impact company is the #1 exploiter company. They want to mess up with the workers, what do you call this, the allowance. So they've stopped the process because even today the workers still don't get the 4.5 that they're supposed to be getting, and they're saying they're busy investigating. That is just one of the things that I wanted to highlight, but we'll get to that. Yeah? And then it was not only the losing of the benefits that the workers suffered, it was now the suffering, the exploitation. You know, the treatment was bad that we got from the vets community as a whole. I will start with the companies. The companies that, the outsourced companies, they would say, because they are dealing directly with services, they would say these rules are coming from services. And they would give us these rules, like Nadira had mentioned, we were only allowed to use one gate. It didn't matter where you worked. You had to work all the way to the gates to exit or to enter. And you should have seen it at 4 o'clock, at that time we were knocking off at 4 o'clock. We were like, because now everyone is rushing to go, and we are like tagging the gate. Sometimes there would even be a queue. And it was very bad. I mean, that's having so many entrances, and we were only subjected to one entrance. And also, I keep losing my train of thought now. Okay. I was going to talk about the admin staff, ne? All right. Okay, the companies, they would tell us you're not allowed to take the food in the morning, because we would go to that same room that Nadira had shown you. We change there, we leave everything, we leave your bag, you leave your food there. And bear in mind that room has no windows. In summer it will become very hot. And sometimes our lunches would go off because of the heat. And we used to sneak in our lunch boxes at the back at our inside our uniform, and maybe sometimes cover it with the jersey, so that you can get into your post and put it in the fridge, and then lunchtime at least you can warm it up, because I mean tina sikera abo khodu and abo amangina chicken feet, we like that food. It's our food that we eat and our cup, and it's not nice if it's cold. And there was this one lady that worked for Sukake Itamalaki Cindy. She used to check us, like literally check us when we leave the change room to go to the buildings. And if she dare catches you with your lunchbox, you were in such trouble. Especially the Thames. The Thames, it was an instant dismissal, because you're not even registered, and you chased away. And for us, the permanent staff, you would sign a warning, and if it's more than 3 warnings, then it will be dismissal. And also we used to, because at that kitchen, there was this boiling, what do they call it? The boiler, yeah. Sometimes it used to break, and they just didn't pay, and in winter we want to have tea. So we would sometimes come back with hot water from the buildings. And also, if she catches you in trouble for just bringing boiling water. And I'm becoming emotional. I'm sorry, just going back there. And every 10 o'clock and every 1 o'clock, we had to take this walk. I mean, if a person never lost weight, then I don't know, because we had to walk. You walk in the morning from that far gate, you go to Matrix to change, then you walk to your post, then at 10 o'clock you walk back to the kitchen, then at 1 you walk back again, then at Chaita time you walk back again to change, only to walk back to the gate. So it was an exercise. And because also we were not allowed to be seen enjoying, all these nice lawns, the library lawns, the shades from the trees. we were not allowed to be seen there. So we had to go to that kitchen where it was stuffy, no windows, you know, no ventilation system, and we had to be there, all of us, we had to be there and eat our lunch. And they also watched us. If they can notice that who and so is not coming, was not there at 10, was not there at 1, it means they are eating in the buildings. Because some of the buildings, staff would be nice and say, you are allowed to use the kitchen. And during winter, you know, winter is because it's cold, and sometimes you would not go into the kitchen. But if the supervisors finds that out, and then you travel again with Cindy, hey, it was tough. So yeah, those were all the rules, and they were saying this is all now coming from services. And funny enough, when the student drafted that letter complaining about the apartheid system that the workers had to enjoy, yeah, services then washed their hands and said, no, it was not us. So nobody could account for all these terrible rules. And that is when, because I remember we had this big meeting at the Senate room. Nomna was still the leader, the Vice Chancellor, and Habib was just an incoming Vice Chancellor. And he was also there. And on that day, Habib then announced that, no, all these rules, I'm abolishing all of them. You are now, as from today, you are allowed to use all the gates. You are allowed to sit anywhere on campus, and no toilet will be locked. You are allowed to use all the toilets that you can. And hey, we were sharing because to us there was a big thing. I mean, we were shouting there and screaming, and you know, we rejoiced. And for that, then Habib, always when we were having the protest, for instance, when the Supercare's contract ended, then a new company had to come and we had to protest together with the students to force the university to keep us and let the companies go and keep us, and whoever who's coming must take us on. And he would always say, when he would address us, his first words was that, I changed the rules. I gave you the access to all the gates. I gave you, as if there was a big thing that he could have done, you know. He always threw that in our faces, as if he's now the hero because he removed the laws that were not supposed to be there in the first place. So yeah, and I told him that in his face. Yeah, and then we also have difficulty when it comes to the vets admin staff as well. And some of them, mind you, remember they used to be cleaners, and because before it was easy to get promoted, so they got promoted. And but now that they have these positions, and they forget where they come from. So. And the conflicts between the cleaners and the admin staff would always be with the ones who were cleaners previously. And they would always put us into trouble. Because, I mean, okay, we are cleaners. You know that the first thing that you do when you get to work, you concentrate on the busy areas, your toilets, reception, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, sorry, 2 minutes. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. Then we have these poses. You know, there are always a room where it's not used, so we will go and sit there and have our lunches or whatever. Now that we are free, we have the places where we sit and have our lunch, because you can't work. You can't be on your feet the whole day working. You know, and now these staff now will be the one who will report us to the companies that they are sitting in that particular room and they are not working, and there's just always complaints, and that resulted in if there's always a complaint, because to our companies, everyone here at VET is a client, so you can be a Mashanela as well. As long as you are hired by VET, then you are also a client. So these Mashanelas, because some of them also still clean, there are areas the way we don't clean, they are cleaning those areas, they're responsible for taking care of those areas. So these Mashanelas will put us into trouble. They will just phone and phone and phone, and if the complaints keep on coming with one person, then you are subjected to be moved. And sometimes, because it's a big deal to us workers to be moved, because some of the buildings, you find that the director, like at Umtombo, I will give that lady Sister the credit because she takes care of the workers. Every year they have a function to acknowledge the workers, they buy them presents, they take them with to the Christmas function, and if there are meetings whereby they order sandwiches and stuff, after that meeting, no one else, no one in the other VET staff will touch the food, the leftovers. It all goes to the cleaners. So, you know, there are pegs that comes with the buildings as well, because sometimes they give you extra because they know we're earning peanuts. Sometimes every month they will collect money and give you something for washing dishes or for doing little odd things there and there. So if you have to be removed now from that place to another, you're going to lose out on all the benefits. So that's why I'm saying that is the constant challenge that we face when it comes to the admin. And also the fact that because we earning peanuts, we don't qualify in most places for things like your vehicle finance, your bond. We don't have mortgage. So we spend our money in paying accounts like the clothing account, the furniture account. And as a result, because we don't have too much debt, okay, we do have debt, but we don't have those big debts. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, except as we say that because we have what do we call workshops where our company will train us, and the people who are workshopping us will tell us that if to be cleaner does not mean that we have to go and very wrong say cleaner. From the VET staff, because when we come to work, when I walk in work, we walk together, I'm the cleaner and you are the VET staff. It's like I'm the professor, you know? And because for they can't be buying. And mind you, Tina, we don't go for expensive clothes. We see a like Strata Force. There is a shop called Strata Force. Tina see a Strata Force. That's where we get our clothing, and it's quality clothing that we get. And it's quality clothing. Then they put us into trouble like that. And then also from students, some of the students who just ignore, you know, they don't even like. We also face segregation from there because they would also complain and stuff like that, and also some of the academics as well, they would complain, but their complaint would be a legit complaint because academics have a nagi interest in analysis and our staff. So yeah, I didn't even get to the task team.
I give you 2 minutes.
2 minutes just to talk. Nadira has said a lot about the Workers' Solidarity and how it was formed. And then from the Workers' Solidarity came the October 6 movement. It started as a meeting trying to combine the struggles of the student workers and academics, both UJ and VET. And that's how come October 6th, the concept was to have a one-day protest against outsourcing, because we established that with the workers from VET and from UJ, the struggle is one is outsourcing. And that day was named, was October 6, 2015, hence the movement also became October 6. I'm also part of that movement. And it was October 6th last year that we had that very successful protest in all the different universities. And then that's when the students then came to us, the workers, and said on the 14th, because it was on the 6th, on the 14th the students said, we want to do a strike, please come and support us. That was the 0% fee increment strike. And we all know what happened following that strike. Also, other universities came on. And I can simply say that October 6th was the foundation of all the struggles that came after and of us winning the insourcing battle. Then after the insourcing was won, then as Habib said, there will be a task team. Vets did honor them, their promise, unlike PJ. The task team was formed and it consists of 4 workers, myself also there, and 4 students split between fees must fall, 2 from fees must fall, 2 from SRC, 2 academics, 2 council members, and 2 management. And every Wednesday we meet. We are making progress. As I mentioned before, we have started with the top-up as an interim measure, and also just to rehumanize the black lives of the Catholic University. And we agreed that at some point, because, okay, we've set a date for insourcing. We'd like that the insourcing to happen on the 1st of June 2016. But obviously, because right now we are at a critical stage on the task team of defining the workers that will be insourced. Because what university has done, they, because you know, they always try to divide us. So with the workers, they've now grouped us. We have 3 categories of workers. There is the first category, which is the service providers. That will be your cleaning, landscape, security, catering, waste management, and transport, the bus drivers. Those are the workers that got the top up. And then there's a set of workers called the vendors. They are on the vendor list. Those are the workers that does the university's maintenance, your electricity, your plumbing, your painting, etc., etc. And what their argument is that they can't insource all the workers. When we say why, because the struggle said all outsourced workers must be insourced. Their argument is that with the vendor workers, for instance, the electrical companies, there's like 4 or 5 of them, and they are put in this list on the computer. And each time there is a job, like let's say this room needs electricity, they send to all these 5 companies, they give us a quote for this room or electricity, how much it's going to be. The company that will provide the cheapest quote is the company that will get the job. Now they are saying that out of 4 companies that didn't get the job, they must go outside and look for work outside Vets. But when we speak to the workers are telling us a different story, that they were told by their bosses that they are not allowed to work outside Vets. So their permanent place of employment is here. Hence they wake up every day and come to work here at Vets. So the university is saying, but it's impossible for us to insource all these 5 companies. If we do insource, we will have to have a specific number of workers. So it is, right now we are at the stage of defining the workers. Then there's a last set of workers, which is retail workers. That will be workers from the shops, the Matrix, the TUs here at Senate. And those workers, they've been proactive here. Bona, they came to their demands on the insourcing task team, and they have said that they know that insourcing is not for them, because it would be literally impossible for university to employ all these different shops and companies. But what they want is for them also to have a minimum whereby when the companies come in, they get told that you pay this amount to all the workers, you comply with the Labor Relations Act, because with the stuff that we find out, people go on maternity and they just get told to go for 4 months. When you come back, don't worry, you find a job. They don't have anywhere to claim. They don't pay UIF. Some are being paid by brown envelope. Now, this day and age, some are being paid by that ShopRite money market thingy. And it's just a lot of exploitation happening there. So if the university can protect them there, and over and above that, they still want to get the benefits, like their kids must be able to come and study for free. they must have access to the computers and libraries, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, that is where we get at this stage. I think I'll end there.
Thank you very much. Wow, thank you, Comrade Delia, for that detailed presentation. I'm going to open this time for discussions and questions quickly. I will take the first 4 hands around, and then we'll take it like that. Any questions and comments at this stage? I must say I have learned, I'm going to start from the worst. I can't be left without it. Sure. Recognize that hand. Okay, I'll say the first 2 is about.
Well, thank you for the presentation. But I would have liked, or I would have liked to hear you go a little bit back to.
Could you please identify yourself?
Francis Richard. To the time of Colin Bundy. And normally, I don't know if you were there by then. Because if the solidarity protest, I think it was 2012. Yeah, I think it was 2012 because I have a documentary of a video documentary on that. If 2012 solidarity was pitched during Colin Bundy, or at least during normal release times, a lot of things could have been avoided. Colin Bundy fought very, very hard because I think he wasn't for the measure of faculties. We used to have 9 faculties, and then we ended up with 5. He was very, very much concerned about the question of measuring faculties. And then I think one of the reasons why he had to exit. Normally to try to pick up the pieces and then match with that. She didn't even last 2 years. It was only 18 months and she was out. So I think if we had pitched that solidarity then, we could have avoided a lot of things, and I would have loved to hear you pick up the history from there.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nana. I think part of what's useful about this is that many people who've been unaware, they thought that outsourcing, insourcing is a demand.
Could you identify yourself?
Sorry,
Use your voice.
Sorry, I also just said dental surgery, so apologies. So I think what's very useful is that many people who have been unaware thought that insourcing, the first time they was talked about was through fees must fall, and I find it very interesting with both of you. That was not the way in which it was absolutely a critical moment, very significant, but I think it's very interesting that you didn't fall down that as strongly as you did and spoke a lot about the kind of background work and foundational work, which really was quite critical. I think it's important that people who are paying attention to this moment realize that the movement that was, in fact, so crucial and significant only took place on the basis of a lot of prior work that had been done for many years. And I just want to raise one issue around that, which is, I think, Nada, you're absolutely right in the way that you represented the narrative, which is that when workers' issues came to the fore in around 2010, the significance of the language of workers being exploited and of the particular kind of poverty of workers was never as significant and never had as much traction. None of the unions were able to mobilize workers around the language of kind of class dislocation and exploitation in the way that from 2010 with the Armitage saga, that workers came together around what it meant for Black lives to be rendered insignificant and for the dignity of Black workers on campus. And every single one of those campaigns that we spoke about, including the 17 dismissed chefs, which led to a hunger strike of workers on Solomon and Clanwell's concourse, that all of the students who put their bodies on the line did so explicitly in the language that we cannot let our mothers and fathers be expelled from the university and put our bodies on the line. And I think that's an important thing. When Fees Must Fall began, even though the language of Fees Must Fall was around an economic question, fees and access to education, workers FARCA between 2010 to 2014. So it meant that the languages that were being mobilized had sufficient traction for those students. And those were around not workers as being necessarily workers. It was around workers being alma maters and alma fathers.